that lets the teachers see them. Well, they won't turn on their video, but if you're on a laptop that doesn't have a video to it, a camera, then of course there's no way to connect that way. I think that going forward, this might not be such a problem, but it's a very real problem right now in my university, at least. All right, let's go to our next one here. All right, so what are some things that I might want to do? So I'm planning a class. So I know there's a lot on the screen here, but you read through these. I tried to list some of the most common things that you might do here. So objective answers and subjective answers. All I'm saying is, remember how I told you, one of the things that students expect is when you put an assignment online, and students are going to expect feedback. Feedback for 61 people, even going through and saying thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up for 61 people takes time. And also when I start doing that, I can't stick to great, 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 and nobody wants to hear just the word great. I have to stop and start saying a few things. As soon as this is me, as soon as I start saying something, even 2 sentences to 61 people, in and out of each assignment, do you know how much time that takes? So in class, I might just say, write 3 sentences that use the word dozen. If our word was D-O-Z-E-N, we studied dozen. Write 3 sentences with the word dozen. When you finish your sentences, ready, time, stop, turn to a partner. This is in the old days, before COVID, live. Turn to a partner, compare your answers. Now, when I did this in class, my students did a little bit of work. They turned to a partner and shared. In the old days, when I had 61 students, I did not collect 61 papers because it was a small little assignment. But what students say when they evaluate classes is, when they evaluate online teaching is, when you actually have any kind of small interaction that they submit to the teacher, to their assignment box, they expect you to make a mark on it. So for me, again, I have 2 hands and I have 24 hours in a day. I can't do everything. And this is just, the writing class I have is one class. I have other classes, right? So before I make an assignment now, I always stop and think, not just the assignment, but I really think hard now. I think a lot harder now than I did before COVID. I think about, when people do this, what are they going to submit? Are they going to submit multiple choice, A, B, A, C, something like that, which the computer, which the platform can correct, which is a good thing? Or am I going to ask them to brainstorm 3 ideas? I'm not saying that you don't have people do these activities on this objective. I'm just saying that before you assign something that has subjective answers to it, think hard about how you're going to give feedback on that. Or you will be grading or marking or commenting on papers all night. There's a lot of commenting, a lot of grading, a lot of marking you have to do. You can't eliminate that. But even if we weren't teaching writing online, we wouldn't be eliminating it. We would still be doing it because it's part of teaching writing. The question is, how do I minimize some of these things? All right. So on the objective answer, something like scrambled sentences. Now this may be too Mickey Mouse or too easy for people at the higher advanced levels. But scrambled sentences could be something where you have a more difficult sentence. I would say even up to the upper intermediate level, you can do something like this. You have a sentence which has 12 words. You take the 12 words and rearrange them in a different order, and students have to write the sentence in the correct order. You could put it in phrases, right? You could put it in chunks there, where you have, for the lower level students. So for example, something like, I am a teacher at the University of Central Florida. I could have I, and then MA, and then teacher at, and then the University of, and then Central Florida, and they can rearrange the sentences. So this is not a new activity at all. I'm just saying that before you have students write and write and write so many new sentences, you might want to go back and look at these objective answer type exercises again, because you have 24 hours in a day and you only have 2 hands, and you probably have more than 1 class, as I do. So my 61 students I'm talking about, that's in 1 class there. Yeah, so there's a way you can use rubrics and things like that. You definitely should use rubrics to mark. I see people talk about rubrics. You should use rubrics there, and I use rubrics. However, when you have a rubric, you're going to have to start writing things in the rubric. So yeah, using rubrics, some of you may not have used rubrics before, but rubrics are going to be your new best friend in dealing with some of these writing assignments. Again, what I'm saying is, before the virus, I assigned a lot of things. But once I moved to teaching writing online, I did a lot of careful analyzing that I hadn't done in many years, about thinking, is that really the way I want to do that exercise? So let me show you an example of one of the classes I'm teaching right now. This is asynchronous in Canvas, my original example. So Emily, I'm going to attempt to share screen here, okay? So you might need to guide me through this a little bit. So if let me minimize, get rid of this for a second, minimize, and open my class over here. All right, there's my class, and I'm going to go to share my screen. And let's see how I did with this. All right, share. Can you guys, how's that? I think we should be seeing, yep, we should be seeing this right now. So I'll go out for 1 minute, go back one here. So I go back, this is one of my classes, it's a module for one of the classes. And so I'll go back one. This allows, now this module, this is just what the shell might look like. It normally has more artwork, it doesn't right now. But if you're teaching in Canvas, home, etc., you come over to the side, you'll see something called modules. I click on modules, and you'll see one called Great Writing, Book 1, Unit 4. And so when you open it up, you get the module here. So this is not the module that the publisher gave me. This is a module that I created because I had to do this. So there are many ways of doing it. This is just one approach to it. So this chapter, this Unit 4 is a low-level writing. It's at the sentence level writing, actually. And it's writing in the past. So when I go to it, I'll go to Introduction. And here's one of the first screens that you've got here. So it's practicing ED. So yes, so one of the things that someone said earlier was about in PowerPoint, we try not to have the screen so crowded. That's true. In PowerPoint, we try not to do that. 100% true. It applies even more so to when you're doing something online. So what I have right now, where you actually have, let's see over here, where you have this one little screen where it says, welcome to the module, and there's a piece of art about it. An example, Delta Airlines Flight 443 from Paris departed. Depart is one of the vocabulary words in this unit. And there's an ED on it indicating simple past tense. It basically tells you the goal for the unit. But you notice lots of white space. This is actually using 18 size font, extra big font. Now again, if you're on your cell phone, this is going to look very different than you're on a laptop or a desktop, right? But I can't control the device that my student's using for this. When I click next, the next button, it takes me to this one. Using the simple past, page 84, it tells you step by step what to do. Now this might, for some of you, you might think, I'm not going to tell the students exactly what to do step by step. That's one possibility. You can be that kind of teacher. And if you want to be that kind of teacher, what's going to happen is that raise my hand box, that discussion board, is going to be full of questions where people are saying, I don't know what to do on page 84. So, again, in order, I'm thinking ahead. I don't want 61 questions. How do I avoid 61 questions? I try to make the exercise so clear, so step by step that everybody will know what to do. It tells you, read and study using the simple past tense on page 84. That's something in our textbook. There are 4 example sentences. What is the verb in each sentence? How do you know it's past tense? This is me. If I were teaching live, if I were teaching face-to-face, I would ask that question right there. Number 2. Number 3, learn the new vocabulary. If you see a new word, write it in your vocabulary notebook. I have already trained my students about the power and the necessity of a vocabulary notebook, which is one of their assignments in the course as well. And if you have any questions or comments, post them here. Your questions about Unit 4. Now notice, this is not raise my hand. So for Unit 4, which is one module, I have a separate discussion board just for this one module. Because when I go to the discussion board will have maybe 10 discussion areas. I can't keep going in and out of each of those to see what you said and what she said and what he has said. So one way is every time I do an exercise, in fact, in this page, in this unit, almost every page that you see now will end with something like your questions. So analyzing a paragraph, pages 84, 85. This is just a simple audio. I'm not going to do it now, but in Canvas, it's very easy. You can create an audio. Our textbook has a box of 4 vocabulary words. This is just me, my voice. I'm reading the 4 words slowly, and I say, now repeat after me. Then I read the 4 words quickly. And then every time I present 4 words, in order to keep it a little bit interactive, my students I will say, okay, the 4 words you saw, which word means 12 items? Which word means, I don't do that for all 4 items. I only do it for 2 items. If I have 4, I ask 2. If I have 20, I only ask 2. Students get used to that kind of pattern here, right? All right. so I'll go ahead and go out of this now and go back to Zoom. I mean, back to Canvas here. Back to the presentation. All right, so that's an example of what it looks like in my course. My students already have a textbook, so they're at home with their computer, their laptop, their cell phone, unfortunately sometimes, and they have the textbook. So I'm going to walk them through the textbook page by page. That's not different than when I was teaching face to face. All right. The next thing is tip number 1, technology. Find out what kind of technology your students have. This is really crucial. Do they have internet connection? We hope yes. What kind of internet connection? So before you start showing videos, which require a lot of bandwidth, think about that carefully. I don't show many. I show some video clips. They're very short, but I've already talked to my tech people to find out how can I minimize the bandwidth demand that the students might have because they're accessing a video a certain way. What's their device? And then phone problems. Phones are a problem for sure. Students, I know we've been told over and over that our students are digital natives, but again, I'm shocked at how many problems some of my students have been having with this. Can they navigate the course management system, Canvas, whatever you're using here? So one of the first things you need to do is in your course, I have module 1, module 2. I also have a module 0, and module 0 walks you through how to operate Canvas, how to open your class, how to find things, how to post in a discussion board. And there will be an assignment that says, go to the discussion board right now and type, this is Keith Fultz, or hello, or something like that for 50 points, something big. And then how prepared are you to teach in this online setting? Tip number 3, the reason I spent so much time on why this is so difficult is the most important thing here, less is okay for now. A lot of teachers, because you're really good teachers and you care about your students, are trying really hard to do everything you did before online. And someday you may be able to do that. But a lot of people are teaching online for the first time, and it went from 0 to 100 miles per hour from a Friday to a Monday, from one week to the next. My university, we only had 2 days preparation really for this. And a lot of my colleagues are not doing well sometimes because they don't know this. So I give this advice. What are the things you would like to do in class? We made that list earlier, right? What are the things that you think you have to do in class? For example, my students have to write, they have to submit assignments. And what are things that they have to do that you feel comfortable with? It might be a shorter list at that point. Tip number 4 is class content. Remember that in online classes, students expect feedback on everything. Now, what does that mean? Yeah, you don't have to do it, but I'm telling you that students, the research I read about this long before COVID-19, people who take classes online expect that if they submitted something, they expect some kind of feedback. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to give an 83, you did well, very extensive feedback. Some assignments I give extensive feedback on, but sometimes after students have done an assignment, look at the last item here. So after my students have done an assignment, I don't want you to do anything except come here and write. Now it says you can't see the assignment in advance. There's a way to close that. So when you finish the assignment, you click on it, and then it says your assignment is type this sentence. I have read the paragraph about penguins on page 87. That's all they have to do for that assignment. Now you might think, that's crazy. Actually, it's not, because one of the things I'm practicing in that unit is present perfect. And right here, I have present perfect. I have read the paragraph. I'm also practicing the word on with pages here. This might not seem like a big deal to you, but we become better writers by writing. Even having students copy a sentence like this is kind of a cool thing to do. Now, I don't have a lot of those. So my students know that sometimes they might find one of these, basically a free points thing. This is not worth 100 points. This might be worth only 5 points. But what I'm trying to say here is when I do assignments, I do sometimes small assignments like that don't require a lot of work there. Tip number 5 is student writing. Find a good way to collect student work. Choose a good way to mark the papers. And then remember that many course management systems have peer editing already built into them. So let me talk about 2 things. First, let's do peer editing. We have 1,000 teachers here today. Even if I only had 10 teachers have 11 different opinions about peer editing. Some of you love peer editing, right? And some of us don't like peer editing so much. It depends on how much time I have and the level of my students. When I'm teaching very, very low-level students, low proficiency students, I don't do a lot of peer editing, not a lot, because they don't really know so much, perhaps. But when I have higher level students, I certainly do more peer editing. In Canvas, for example, there is a way when you go to assignments, and I'll bet whether you're using Canvas or MOOC or whatever, Google Hangouts, whatever it is, Blackboard, there's a way to do this. When you set up an assignment, within the assignments, when you set up the date it's due and how many points, and when it closes, and whether it's submitted in a box or whether it's a document that you submit, regardless of how you do that, there is often another step that allows you to do peer editing. So, for example, this assignment is due on Wednesday. When Wednesday happens at 11:59 p.m., when that happens, all of the papers that are in there, I can tell that I want it to be randomly assigned to 2 other people, which means if there were 61 people, all the papers will be mixed, and each person who submitted a paper will receive 2 new papers to give feedback on. Of course, I've already talked about peer editing to my students. We already have a rubric for peer editing. They're told what to say, what not to say. And with good peer editing, I always tell them specifically, I want you to look for this, this, and this. I just don't turn them blindly loose and say, find things, right? So as I'm doing this with the course management system, you can do the peer editing as well. It is not necessary to collect the papers and then you shuffle them and then you email them separately. I would bet that your course management system, your learning management system, has a feature built into it that does peer editing. Now, I'll tell you some advice here. The first time I used the peer editing feature, it was a mess because I didn't understand the logistics of how it worked. So go to my second best friend. If I don't go to Facebook, I go to YouTube. Go to YouTube and put in there how to do peer editing in Canvas. Don't say in online teaching because they'll assume that you don't have a certain course management system. But whatever you're using, for example, I'm using Canvas at my university, I would say how to do peer editing in Canvas, and it'll tell you what to do. Get lots of help with that. All right. There are lots of ways to give feedback here. So one of the ways to give feedback, for example, I told you I do undergraduate, graduate, and PhD classes. For the PhD classes, these are longer assignments. When people submit a longer assignment, and I also don't have as many students. My PhD class might only have 7 or 8 students in it. When that happens, then one of the options in Canvas is when you submit an assignment, there are 2 ways to submit an assignment or to write an assignment. The students, sometimes it'll say, I can give them a box. It'll give them an answer box. If the assignment is something easy, such as write 5 sentences and number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then maybe I will tell them to do that in the box. When they submit it in the box, then what happens in the box, I will give feedback off to the right, and I will say, number 2, please add a verb. Number 3, departed should be departs, or something like that. One of the negatives of that is I really want to mark, I have a pen right here. I want to take the pen, I want to mark the paper. There is a way to do that in your learning management system. For me, I'm getting better at it, but I'm still not so good with that. So in your course management system, there will be a way to mark up the papers. I use it sometimes. You'll have to play around with this. Do you want your students to submit a Word doc or a PDF? All right. And one strong suggestion is please be sure to tell your students exactly what you want them to submit it as. If not, they will submit it in documents like Apple Works or something that I don't have a possibility of actually marking in a certain way. All right. So Emily, I'm going to let you say a few things here. I do have my email here at the top of the screen there. If people have any questions, please feel free to send me an email to my Gmail account. I know we didn't cover everything today. There's just too much to cover here. It's a difficult thing we're doing. Whatever your learning management system is, try hard to work within that by going to a Facebook group or going to a YouTube channel. Okay, Emily, I'll turn it over to you now.
All right, Awesome. Thanks, Keith. We're just about at the hour. So thanks everyone for attending, and thanks, Keith, for the great session. I do just want to make a plug now. We had so many people on this session. We had about 1,300. So, some really great things coming through in the chat box. I apologize that we could not answer all of them. They were going so quickly. But we do have several webinar recordings for different focuses for teaching online. We have a great series of 3 of them that recommend some free resources by Dr. Joan King Shin and Jared Borup. If you are looking for more on free resources, I saw a few questions about that. And I'm just going to put the link for the category of online teaching webinars in here too, if you'd like to check out any of those. Keith did do another one the other week on academic vocabulary and teaching that online. So definitely be sure to check that out if you have a chance. And we're going to continue to program more webinars to help you teach virtually for all different topics and all different ages. We'll have them for teaching young learners, teaching teens, teaching university students, adults. So please be sure to subscribe for notifications and join us again. We'd love to see you on another webinar. We do have another session today of the same webinar. It's at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's in the US. So be sure to tell your colleagues about that. We'd love for them.